There is a script that has been handed down to us for generations. It is preached by our parents and reinforced by every real estate agent with a smiling face on a bus bench. It is the American dream, the ultimate marker of adulthood and the supposed golden ticket to middle-class wealth. The script says that rent is throwing money away. It tells us that we are paying our landlord's mortgage instead of our own. We are told that buying a house is the best investment we will ever make. We internalize this doctrine until it becomes part of our identity. We feel a deep, visceral shame when we are still renting at 30 or 40. It feels as if we have failed to launch, like we are financially illiterate children refusing to grow up. We panic and buy homes we can barely afford, stretching our debt-to-income ratios to the breaking point. We convince ourselves that we are making a smart financial decision simply because we signed a deed. But the truth is that for millions of people in the modern economy, this script is a lie. The math has changed, the market has changed, and the blind faith in home ownership is trapping an entire generation. It is creating a prison of illiquidity and financial stagnation. The uncomfortable reality is that for many of you watching this, your house is not an asset. It is a liability. It is a massive consumption purchase that is masquerading as an investment. Today, we are going to dismantle the rent versus buy myth piece by piece. We are going to expose the unrecoverable costs of homeownership. These are the hidden piles of money you throw away that are mathematically identical to rent. We are going to calculate the price-to-rent ratio, the single most important metric for deciding where to live. And most importantly, we will see how a disciplined renter who invests the difference can end up with a higher net worth. To understand why buying isn't always better, we have to redefine what throwing money away actually means. When you rent, you pay a monthly fee for a roof over your head. That money is gone, and the transaction is transparent. But when you buy a house, you are told that your monthly payment is savings or equity. This is fundamentally false, especially in the early years of your loan. A massive portion of your monthly housing cost as an owner is also thrown away. It is money that never comes back to you and builds zero equity. We call these the unrecoverable costs. Let us break them down because they are silent wealth killers. First, there is the cost of capital, which is primarily your mortgage interest. In the first 5 to 10 years of a 30-year mortgage, nearly 70 to 80% of your payment goes straight to the bank. You are not paying yourself, you are renting money from the bank. If you look at an amortization schedule, it is truly terrifying. You might pay $3,000 a month, and only $400 of that is actually reducing your debt. The rest is vapor. Second, there are property taxes. This is a perpetual rent you pay to the government for the privilege of staying on your own land. In many high-tax states, this alone can equal a modest rent payment. Third, there is maintenance. The rule of thumb says this will cost you 1 to 2% of the home's value every single year. This is not about fancy renovations or new granite countertops. It is the unsexy stuff like leaking water heaters, roof patches, and pest control. Fourth, there is homeowners insurance, which is skyrocketing in many regions due to climate risks. And fifth, there are the massive transaction costs of buying and selling. When you add up commissions and closing costs, they can eat up to 10% of the asset's value. When you add all these up, interest, taxes, maintenance, and fees, the unrecoverable cost of owning is often higher than rent. You are not building wealth. You are just paying a different landlord comprised of the bank and the state. The math of this decision usually comes down to one critical number called the price-to-rent ratio. Think of this as the price-to-earnings ratio for the housing market. You calculate it by taking the price of a home and dividing it by the annual cost to rent a similar property. If a house costs $500,000 and rents for $2,000 a month, the ratio is roughly 20. Historically, a ratio below 15 suggests it is better to buy, but a ratio above 20 suggests it is arguably much better to rent. In many major cities today, these ratios are pushing 25 or 30. When the ratio is that high, the math is screaming at you to rent. Why is that? Because the cost of capital on that massive purchase price far exceeds the cost of rent. By renting, you are effectively shorting the housing market. You are living in $1 million asset for a fraction of the cost it would take to finance it. You are letting the landlord subsidize your lifestyle while they take on the risk of the foundation cracking. You are consuming housing services at a discount while the owner speculates on appreciation that may never happen. The most dangerous trap of home ownership is the opportunity cost of the down payment. This is the invisible wealth killer that nobody talks about at dinner parties. To buy that $500,000 home, you likely need to put down $100,000 in cash. That is money that is now locked in a wall. It is dead equity that produces no cash flow. It cannot be used to buy groceries, and it cannot be rebalanced. If you had taken that $100,000 and invested it in the S&P 500, it would double every 7 years. By locking it in a house, you are placing a massive bet that your single local market will beat the global stock market. This is a bet that historically real estate loses. Nobel Prize-winning economists have proven that real home prices barely outpace inflation over the long term. The massive gains people brag about are usually just inflation illusions or leveraged luck in specific bubbles. By renting and investing the down payment plus the monthly savings, you maintain liquidity and diversity. This is the rent and invest the difference strategy. For disciplined people, it is a wealth accelerant. It turns you from a house-rich and cash-poor prisoner into a liquid millionaire. We also have to talk about mobility, which is an undervalued asset in the modern world. Your house is an anchor. In a rapidly changing economy, the ability to move for a better job is a massive financial asset. If you get a job offer in another city that pays $50,000 more, a renter can leave in 30 days. A homeowner is trapped by the friction of a sale. They have to pay agent fees, staging costs, and potentially sell at a loss if the market is down. The transaction costs of selling a home can wipe out years of accumulated equity in a single afternoon. By buying, you are essentially shorting your own mobility. You are betting that your current location will be the best place for you for the next 7 to 10 years. If you are wrong, the exit fee is brutal. Renting buys you optionality. And in a volatile world, optionality has a premium value. Now, some will argue that rent goes up while a mortgage is fixed. This is the strongest argument for buying, and it is a valid point. A fixed-rate mortgage is indeed a hedge against inflation. But remember, while the mortgage principal and interest are fixed, nothing else is. Property taxes go up constantly as cities need more revenue. Insurance premiums are climbing every year. The cost of labor and materials to fix your house goes up with inflation. You are not immune to inflation as a homeowner. And while rent does go up, so does the stock market. If your investment portfolio grows at 7 to 10% a year, it will likely outpace the increase in rent. You are using your appreciating assets to pay for your life, rather than using your house as your only asset. There is also a profound lifestyle element that gets ignored in the spreadsheets. Homeownership is a part-time job. It is weekends spent at the hardware store instead of with your friends. It is the mental load of managing a deteriorating physical asset. When you rent, you are outsourcing that stress. If the dishwasher breaks, you call a number and it gets fixed at no cost to you. That time freedom has a value that is hard to quantify, but easy to feel. If you use those Saturday mornings to learn a new skill or start a business, renting increases your income potential. You are trading the pride of ownership for the luxury of freedom. Many people buy a house thinking it will give them stability, only to find it gives them anxiety. I am not saying you should never buy a house. Buying makes sense if you are settling down for more than 10 years. It makes sense if you value the ability to renovate more than you value liquidity. But do not buy because you think it is a mandatory step to wealth. Do not buy because you are afraid of throwing money away on rent while ignoring the interest and taxes. A house is a consumption choice like a fancy car or a nice suit. It is a place to live, not a guaranteed retirement plan. If you treat your primary residence as your primary investment, you are creating a concentrated and illiquid portfolio. The path to wealth is not about owning a deed. It is about owning income-producing assets like stocks, bonds, and businesses. A house is an asset that you pay, while a stock is an asset that pays you. Don't let the cultural script bully you into a bad investment. Run the numbers for your specific city. Check the ratio and look at the unrecoverable costs. If the math says rent, then rent with pride and invest the difference. Build your liquid empire and let the landlord worry about the roof. If this perspective made you rethink the traditional dream, make sure to like this video. Subscribe for more ways to hack the system and build wealth on your own terms. I will see you in the next one.